Tonight, a new executive action from President Biden pardoning thousands of Americans convicted of simple marijuana possession under federal law. Let's get right to our senior White House correspondent, Mary Bruce. She's live at the White House with late reporting. Mary?
David, the president has now pardoned all people with a marijuana conviction with marijuana possession under federal law. That clears about 6,500 people convicted between 1992 and 2021. Biden saying sending people to jail for simple possession has upended too many lives, saying it's time to right these wrongs. And he is also urging governors to pardon those convicted of state charges, which make up for the vast majority of convictions. The president is also ordering his administration to review how marijuana is classified, saying that it makes no sense that it is a Schedule I drug in the same class as heroin and LSD. But David, the big picture here, this is an important first step towards decriminalization. The president is making good on a promise he made during the campaign. David, of course, this announcement coming just 33 days before the midterm elections. David?
Major move from the president tonight. Mary Bruce, thank you.
All right, we're back again for another segment. All right, so let me just hop into this next story. So the next story is actually one of the areas where I kind of am more in alignment with the progressive types. I kind of lean left on this one. Somebody asked me recently, is like, is there any issue where you actually agree with leftists? I'm like, yeah, there's several. So this is one of them. So what I want to do is I want to pull up the article. This next story is about Joe Biden, and I think one of the clear wins, even I would genuinely categorize this as a win for the current administration, and that is Biden has instituted a overhaul of U.S. policy on marijuana. So let's talk about that. If I can, okay, I was like, why can't I share my screen? There you go. All right, so this is from either Reuters or Reuters. I don't know how to pronounce this, so forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But the headline reads: Biden overhauls U.S. policy on marijuana, pardons prior federal offenses. Now it's that part after the comma that I want to focus on, because I've been wondering for a long time when there was going to be pardons of people who had been convicted for marijuana, given that the way things have been shifting lately when it comes to marijuana is that we're shifting towards a more lax stance on it. And there's a lot of, I think, valid reasons why we should have it. First of all, it never should have been a Schedule I drug. It still shouldn't. But there are a lot of valid reasons why marijuana has kind of become this kind of weird boogeyman in the war on drugs that I kind of want to explore a little bit. And I'm mostly in alignment with people left of center, but I actually think that there are a lot of people across the political spectrum who are in alignment on this anyway. So, I mean, it's not really saying much that I'm in alignment with those left of center on this particular issue, to be honest, but it is one of the things that I agree with a lot of progressives. So let's read a little bit of this article. President Joe Biden took steps to overhaul U.S. policy on marijuana on Thursday by pardoning thousands of people with federal offenses for simple marijuana possession and initiating a review of how the drug is classified. So what I've read in other articles, that number constitutes about 6,500. So 6,500 people who were convicted for simple possession of marijuana are going to get pardoned. That's 6,500 less people incarcerated in our federal prisons. It's a small win, but it's a win. I do disagree with the idea that we should lock people up and throw away the key for merely possessing marijuana, especially now that it's becoming legal in a lot of states. Those people should have been let out of jail, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I guess Bucks Democrats are desperate right before a midterm election where they look like they're about to get trounced. I can see what the political motivations for this move would be. Definitely going to gain them more support amongst the liberal types, but it's not going to go far enough, though. And so the only possibility that I can see as of right now for this backfiring is it continues this trend of the administration doing woke-ish things, but they're not going far enough, so the woke won't like fully embrace it. So he did the debt relief thing, but like there's this weird kind of half-ass, like, but like anybody who has private loans, those don't count. But if they're public loans, you're good. It's like, I mean, I guess. So I don't know. And I don't know, like some people, some progressive types are acting like these half-ass measures are like everything. It's like take what you can get. But then there are a lot of people on the left. These are usually the wokest of the woke who are like, nah, like that's not good enough. And so there's this weird infighting on the left that I've noticed that is kind of interesting. But I actually I find it very difficult to predict uh, uh, how that's play out in terms of motivating people to vote. Are people going to like vote harder, even though they're not really getting what they want, and they keep? Are they going to settle for these half-ass measures? And they're like, well, they're better than what the Republicans are offering, so I guess I'll take it. Maybe. I mean, to a certain extent, liberal progressive types have been voting in that way for the longest time, and including my people as a populace. Black people have been voting for a whole bunch of policies that don't really benefit us, but they're slightly better than Republican policies. At least most people in my community feel that way, so they settle for them. But like, when are we gonna be like, you know what? Nah, not good enough. You're not getting our vote this time because that's not good enough. When are black people and when are progressives who are fed up with this type of shit gonna do that? Will it be now in 2022? Will it be in 2024? I don't know, but I feel like that shit is coming. But at the same time, it's like the Dems are gonna lose people in the middle if they keep pushing further and further left. That's how far left things have gone in terms of what the progressive types want. So I don't know, man. The progressives are pretending like things have gone further to the right. That doesn't make sense to me. But whatever, I guess. I mean, I do think that there's some merit to the idea. I wouldn't express it by saying that the right has gone further right. I don't know that you can become more conservative. You can conserve harder, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. But like, it seems like the conservative types have actually themselves gone to the left too, with embracing people like Trump, who's not really like a traditional conservative and who embraces the LGBTQ community to that they vote for him. That's a departure from conservative stances, a major one. But it's a departure to the left, not to the right. So the idea that the whole country is going further to the right, but also Republicans are coming to the left is stupid. But I don't know, man. It's really hard to get progressives to make sense sometimes. But to be fair, sometimes the MAGA crowd don't make sense to me either. Biden said thousands of people with prior federal convictions could be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities, and his executive action would relieve such collateral consequences. I'm in agreement with that. Yeah. Our incarceral system upends the lives of people in a lot of different ways, perpetual ways, even after they do their time. And so taking steps with an executive action to whatever extent he legally do that, to in some sense compensate people for that or prevent that from happening to people who are about to get out or who are about to get let out early. I agree with that. I don't know that marijuana is the boogeyman that people have been arguing that it is. I don't smoke weed. I've smoked it before in my life on a couple of different occasions, but I don't normally smoke weed despite my aesthetic and my appearance. I guess because of the association with Rastafarian culture and dreadlocks, people with my aesthetic typically smoke weed. I often disappoint people when I don't smoke. I don't know. I never really got into it, but I've done it before. Like usually it's usually like an intense amount of peer pressure. It's usually like, I remember one dude, my homie Craig. It was his birthday, and I was chilling at his house. I used to go to their house all the time. And he was like, man, you got to smoke. It's my birthday, man. You didn't give me a birthday gift. All I want for you to do is smoke for my birthday. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, man, you got to smoke with me. I'm like, all right, because I didn't get you nothing. I'm going to smoke. And every now and again, because my homies smoke all the time, I would, special occasions usually, or just randomly, I'd be like, fuck it. I'll take a hit or whatever. But it's very, very rare. I've never really been a smoker. I've always rode life on a natural high. I got that one of them personalities. But no judgment. I mean, I've never really seen. I should take that back. I used to back when I was more religious, and I was kind of misled by that by some religious people about how weed is the root of all evil, the devil's lettuce. Marijuana is the devil's lettuce. Like it's so fucking dramatic. Like, nah, it's not deep. And I lived in Hawaii for 6 years. The marijuana, the pakalolo culture is pretty legit. It's just basically like Cali, and I grew up in Cali, so yeah, we got out here. But yeah, I don't know. I just never been a weed smoker, but I don't see it as the boogeyman people make it out to be. And I do think that there's been a lot of propaganda against it that just doesn't, like, if you look into it, it's like, the fact that it's a Schedule 1 drug is weird to me. I've never understood that, and to this day I don't understand that. And I think that should change. So I'm pretty much in alignment with the liberals on this one. I think they're just right. Okay. So nearly 40 U.S. states have legalized marijuana use in some form, but it remains completely illegal in some states and at the federal level. Reclassification would be a first step toward wider legalization, a move backed by a majority of Americans, and usher in sweeping changes for companies and law enforcement and impact millions. The president's decision fulfills a campaign promise and is likely to please members in his left-leaning political base ahead of the November midterm elections, in which the president's fellow Democrats are defending control of the House of Representatives and Senate. So it seems like this is motivated by desperation, but I guess the libs will take it. Too many lives have been upended because of our failed approach to marijuana. It's time we right these wrongs, Biden said. He urged state governors to follow suit. Just as no one should be in federal prison solely due to possession of marijuana, no one should be in a local jail or state prison for that reason either. I agree with that. I just agree. I agree with the libs on this. A senior administration official said more than 6,500 people with prior federal convictions could be affected by the pardon. So that confirms what I said earlier in terms of the number. I think there's something like 45,000 total for marijuana-related offenses in our prisons, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta fact check that. So take that with a grain of salt. I haven't fact checked that, but I think it's something like that. So it's a lot more that are in there, but just simple possession is what they're focusing on, and only at the federal level. So that's 6,500. The next things they have set in their sights is the state prisons, and I don't know what number that comprises. So I am all for this policy position. I do think that I need to do some more research about objectively what are the potential harms of kind of why the more potent forms of marijuana, because there's a lot more potent products now in 2022 than there have been in the past. And they all come with their various different harms and the ways that they impact people's brains, particularly if they start smoking them at younger and younger ages. And legalizing marijuana is going to make them really available for people at younger and younger ages. Now, as a teacher that has seen how students coming to school high negatively impacts their education in various different ways, and I don't just mean because they're removed from the classroom big trouble. I just mean when they're present and they're high. Like for a lot of them, what it does is like a coping mechanism or a stress mechanism. So they're dealing with the stresses of like school, and they have to read, and they have to study, and they have all this homework and stuff like that, and they're like freaking out. So they do it to kind of like, but then what it does is it creates all kinds of dependencies on something other than their natural coping mechanisms. And I don't think that that's good for them long term, particularly if they're doing that in younger ages. And I'm talking like middle school and shit. Like, and it's not really clear what long-term impacts that has on their brains, particularly the more potent forms of marijuana. And so I would like to know objectively about answers to those questions before I take a really staunch pro-marijuana position, because I want to be reasonable and objective about it. But it doesn't really seem that blanket bans on marijuana or incarcerating people for merely possessing marijuana is justified. It seems, particularly when you have alcohol that's totally legal and it's like way more harmful. And I know for a fact that alcohol consumption in high amounts at young ages has all kinds of deleterious effects on the development of people. So I wouldn't approve that for my students either, but I wouldn't necessarily favor prohibition of alcohol. So that's kind of where I stand. Is like if we treat it like alcohol, we have reasonable restrictions and we enforce those things reasonably, we should be good. There is an interesting question about the extent to which the nature of marijuana, how easy it is to grow, makes it harder to regulate. So those are some interesting questions maybe on the other side. But yeah, other than those kinds of considerations, I'm pretty much in agreement with not incarcerating people for mere possession of marijuana. I just, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that our society is served in any way, and I don't think it's harmed by reneging on those or upending or reversing those policies. To be honest, if there's some kind of catastrophic harm I'm unaware of, I'm willing to debate it. Hit me in the comments. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing that. I'm gonna go into the video segment from the Young Turks. I'm not really a fan of the Young Turks, to be honest with you, but I make myself listen to some of their videos, if only to keep my ear to the ground and at least be aware of some of the things that some of the radical libs are saying. But I actually found myself agreeing with a lot of things that Anna and Cenk were saying in this segment that I'm about to show you. So there's something. All right. I'm gonna tell you what I agree with and what I disagree with. Cenk does this thing where he gets super fucking like over the top. And he's like Cenk, calm down, bro. Goddamn. I hate when he does that. It makes his show hard. It makes it hard to watch him because he annoys me. But I'm trying to like see through that bullshit and see what he's saying and evaluate it as objectively as I can. And I think Anna's fairly reasonable. I don't remember disagreeing with things that Anna said. So here we go.
Joe Biden has delivered on a campaign promise and has stated that he will pardon thousands of individuals who have been convicted federally for possessing marijuana. Now, simple marijuana possession is something that he plans on erasing from people's records, which is good news. He also is taking the first major step in decriminalizing pot and potentially taking marijuana off the list of Schedule 1 substances, which is huge. This is a big deal. Now, he made the announcement via Twitter where he writes, "As I've said before, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. Today, I'm taking steps to end our failed approach. Allow me to lay them out." Lay them out, Biden, lay them out. So here's what he says he's gonna do. First, I'm pardoning all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. There are thousands of people who were previously convicted of simple possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result. My pardon will remove this burden. Let me pause for a second. This is great. I don't think that anyone should be denied a job because they were convicted of simple marijuana possession. That is insane. But I also think that if you've done your time and you've paid your debt to society, regardless of what the crime is, you should be able to get out of prison or jail or whatever it is and get a job. Like it's crazy that people are punished literally for the rest of their lives. Anyway, but
I agree with Anna. I don't always agree with Anna, but I agree with her pretty vehemently on this one. I don't think she said anything that's wrong so far. So she seems pretty reasonable on this one. I agree with her vehemently on that last point too. I don't think that the way our criminal justice system works in our society is that people are perpetually punished even after they pay their debt to society, and it sets people up to just endure cycles of poverty or stoop to recidivism, that is stooping back into criminality in order to make ends meet. And this is particularly true of Black people who are incarcerated and do their debt to society. There's reason to suspect, good reason to suspect, that Black people have a harder time after they pay their debt to society than white people do, in terms of getting their life back on track, in terms of finding a job, etc. And I think that those kinds of things are problems of the criminal justice system that need to be addressed. And so I think I'm in alignment with most liberal types on that. I don't think we should get rid of all police everywhere in the entire United States, though. I think that goes way too far. I don't think that solves the problem at all. And I don't think that we should get rid of all prisons. But I do think that something drastic needs to change in order to address that issue, though. So I'll continue with Anna, and then she's going to go to Cenk soon.
Let me continue. That's a little bit of a side note. Additionally, he will also encourage governors to take similar steps. Remember, we're talking about the president of the United States. He has control over federal convictions, but many people are still dealing with state convictions for marijuana possession. So he says, second, I'm calling on governors to pardon simple state marijuana possession offenses. Just as no one should be in federal prison solely for possessing marijuana, no one should be in a local jail or state prison for that reason either. And currently, marijuana is illegal under federal law because of the fact that it is a Schedule I substance or listed as such. Even as individual states have moved toward legal use for recreational and medical purposes, under the 1970 Controlled Substances Act, marijuana is listed on Schedule I, meaning it has no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse.
Yeah, I think that needs to change. I just full stop agree so far with everything that's been said. I think it's interesting though. My mind just made this connection. It's not really that relevant, but I just think it's interesting how there's been all kinds of kind of off-label, non-official, accepted medical uses for marijuana in various different places, especially here in California where I live, to solve all kinds of things and cure all kinds of things. But it's not federally recognized, and people are totally legit. Like that's totally cool with a lot of people left of center. But the use of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin for COVID was like the worst thing ever to a lot of these motherfuckers left of center. Like it was like, oh my God, off-label use, you can't do that. It's like the same motherfuckers that be proselytizing using all kind of hemp this and cannabis oil that to cure all kinds of shit, motherfuckers giving it to their pets and shit. That's cool. That's legit. That's scientific. But like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, that's horrifying. That's horrible. Like, I don't know, man. I just think that these motherfuckers, man, and I get that they're different substances and they have different effects and different things like that. Totally get that. I'm not trying to conflate them and make it sound like they're not different, but it's just like the willingness to be open-minded to off-label uses in the case of that, in the context of COVID, versus marijuana, which I don't know, people on the left just think marijuana can do no wrong. It's like, even though the more stronger marijuana products that they're creating now, they're way more potent, actually do have harmful effects. That's proven scientifically, particularly if you overindulge. And marijuana can be addictive, by the way. I know a lot of people left of center who deny that you can get addicted to marijuana or that you can OD on any marijuana products. It's like actually the kinds of products that they're making, it's like for the first time ever, you actually can. I remember that was a debate I had way back in college. It was like, you can't OD on marijuana. It's impossible. It was like, I mean, maybe back then that was true. Like 2011 or some shit, but like I don't know, bro. Like, or maybe that was 2008. I was making these debates. 2007, but like now, bro, like this shit strong that they got out now. That shit fucking strong, bro. It's fucking like genetically modified weed. Like can I have regular weed? Can I have what's that? Cat Williams. I just want regular weed. Regular weed. Cat Williams, shout out to Cat Williams. But yeah, it'd be interesting how companies approach marijuana if and when it becomes legal at a federal level. Also, another thing that I don't think TYT touches on is that federal housing, particularly people who are on Section 8, if you get caught smoking weed because it violates federal law, even if you live in a state like California, where it's perfectly legal, you can get kicked out of your Section 8. You can lose that shit. Ain't that a bitch? So getting rid of that will create that weird loophole, or get rid of that loophole that has upended a significant amount of families, particularly Black families, from taking advantage of Section 8 housing, which they sorely need because of the conditions under which they live. So that's kind of an issue. But yeah, moving on.
Jink.
Yes. For those of you who've been watching a long time, what do I always tell you about how progressive the country is? And one of the ways that I prove that to you guys is by
I rolled my eyes the first time I heard Jake say this, but like I guess I mean I'll let him explain it, but I don't know that I buy this argument.
Is by showing you right before an election, everybody goes progressive. Even Mitch McConnell, when he thought there was a small chance he might lose 2 elections ago, declared that he loved the Kentucky version of Obamacare. Funny, I thought you were trying to kill Obamacare all that time, right?
The same country that just overturned Roe v. Wade is progressive? I guess.
And I can show you dozens, and in fact, I have throughout the years dozens of examples. And here's another one. Joe Biden, first he goes progressive on student debt relief, and just like we told him, his numbers go up. Of course. And one of the reasons is
Joe Biden's numbers went up among who? I guess young people. That actually does make sense. I guess he's gonna say this. Young people. It went up again amongst young people. So I guess they're hoping to get the young vote because people who are old enough to know better and see through that shit are not falling for it anymore. And so I guess the only hope is to get a bunch of young dumb motherfuckers that don't pay attention and who are voting for the first time ever in their lives to vote for a bunch of dumb shit that their college professors tell them they need to vote for. Maybe. I mean, I was young and dumb and naive, and I voted for Obama twice. The first time I voted for him, actually, and the second time was because he was black, and that was it. I didn't really know his policies. I just wanted to be a part of the generation that voted the first black man into office. And I now, in my maturity and kind of, I know a lot more now than I did back then when I was like fucking 19 or 20 or some shit. But yeah, I got a lot of criticisms of Obama. And I share a lot of criticisms actually of Obama with liberals who criticize his warmongering, his immigration policies, he was the deporter in chief and all that kind of shit, etc. And there's like the prison industrial complex was alive and well under Obama. Just to name a few things. I've heard Kyle Kulinski name those things and a whole bunch more. I won't go over it. I'm sure people right, left, and center have criticisms of Obama. I don't know that a lot of the criticisms that people right of center have of Obama are fair. A lot of them seem unfair. But I tend to think that a lot of the criticisms that people left of center have of Obama were more fair if they're not like on his nutsack too hard, because some people left of center act like Obama did nothing wrong, and that's just weird to me. I don't see how you can ignore drone strikes that killed innocent people in foreign countries and or American citizens, some of which were children. I don't know how you can act like that doesn't constitute doing wrong. Like what? But anyway, and yeah, he deported the shit out of people. And also, remember the kids in cages things that they criticized Trump for? Yeah, the photos came from the Obama administration. Those cages, those kids in those cages were in those cages under Obama. It's not funny, but it's funny just because of how fickle leftists are when it comes to criticizing presidents they don't like. But whatever. Let's go back to Cenk.
That when you have people who are mad about student debt relief, they're only a little mad. They're not going to vote based on that. If you got $10,000 or $20,000 in student debt relief, you're going to vote based on that. And his numbers among the young went up double digits, right? Now, another thing he'd promised young people was getting rid of marijuana as a Schedule I drug. And we're going to get to the portions of the announcement related to that in a second. And doing these kind of actions. So now that he saw, progressives were right about student debt relief, that wound up helping me in the polls a lot. He goes to do the second step because this is also going to help him win elections.
So it seems like the main point that Cenk is really trying to signal and almost virtue signal is that when you do the progressive things that we, the progressives, love, you get results in the polls. You get approval. Your rating goes up. You do better. When you resist that because you're kowtowing to the evil dictates of the no good, very bad Republicans or some shit, then bad things happen to you and you lose elections. That seems to be kind of the message. I've heard Kyle Kulinski say shit like that. I've heard David Pakman signal shit like that, although I don't know that I've heard him explicitly say that. So this seems to be a kind of reoccurring theme amongst progressives. There seems to be some truth to that, but I think that they're turning a blind eye to some of the policy positions that they have that are batshit fucking crazy, like defunding the police. And by what I mean by that is the version of that that doesn't make any fucking sense, which is that we don't want no police anywhere ever. That's dumb. That's always been dumb. It's a stupid policy position that backfired tremendously. That's one of the reasons why Democrats hesitate to kowtow to what progressives say they want, because some of the shit that they claim to want is batshit fucking crazy, and it's going to lose them elections. Repeating ad infinitum or ad nauseum that men can be women and women can be men by fiat, and that men can get pregnant, which is a critique that Bill Maher, a classical liberal, has given, is going to lose them fucking elections. Right? It's one of the reasons why Stacey Abrams is losing her credibility, because she backtracked on the whole the no good, very bad, evil Republicans are like stealing elections by making it hard for black people to vote. Like, she's still saying that. But what she backtracked on was the defund the police position. Sorry, I conflated things. I'm just talking about Stacey Abrams now. She backtracked on the defund the police position. She acted like she never wanted to defund the police. We have this woman on camera saying she wanted to. And then she also backtracked recently on another thing, which is like unrelated, but just an example of her losing her credibility, which is she backtracked on the denial of election results. Because in the wake of January 6th, that shit became really unpopular. So now she's acting like, no, what I meant when I said that I actually won is that I had these small moral victories, because like I raised awareness about like what the no good, very bad, evil Republicans are doing with respect to voter suppression. Allegedly, I guess. Requiring IDs to vote is not really voter suppression. That's not like poll taxes back in the Jim Crow days before the Voting Rights Act. That's stupid that a lot of woketards thought that was a thing. It's actually easier to vote in Georgia, and just record turnout in Georgia. And Stacey Abrams apparently is taking credit for that, which is weird, but okay, I guess. I mean, maybe to some extent she's taking, like, it. I think it was definitely a push by liberals to, under the context of the pandemic in the 2020 election, to push for mail-in voting, and Georgia. The way it manifested in Georgia is they extended that out to a lot more people, and a lot of that has been preserved, although it's been pushed back a little bit. If you want to say that that's voter suppression because they've gone back a little bit like the way it used to be before the pandemic, even though we're out of the pandemic, at least according to Joe Biden, which a lot of libtards are like butthurt that he said that. But like, I don't know, shit's back to normal. Motherfuckers are fed up wearing masks for no fucking reason when they don't seem to have that much of a benefit anymore. And like the majority of the population is like gotten a chance to get vaccinated and get boosted. So like, why are we are we gonna mask forever? Is this a forever pandemic? Because then some of those conspiracy theories that y'all said were conspiracy theories are gonna start to be true. Just saying. But let's go back to Jank and hear what he's saying.
And then, of course, just the general thing of not just the student debt relief worked, but they always go progressive before the elections. And remember, this is not primaries. This is general elections, because they know the overwhelming majority of the country actually loves all of these progressive proposals.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that, actually doing something for people and giving them a reason to vote for you or to vote for your party, as opposed to constantly leaning on the fear-mongering messaging about the Republican Party, which sure, do that too. I mean, I think that's legitimate, but at the same time, offer something to people.
I don't want to deliberately misconstrue anything that Anna just said, but did she just say that fear-mongering is legitimate? Or is that like a fair conclusion to draw from what you just said? Like, my reading of what she said, I'm trying to be generous. My reading of what she just said is like, there's something either short-sighted or bad about relying solely on fear-mongering about Republicans. What you should do is offer people something, but also fear-monger about the Republicans, because that's also legitimate. So my reading of what she's saying in a nutshell is, don't just fear-monger about Republicans. Do that too. Fear-mongering about Republicans is legitimate, but also offer people stuff. So offer people stuff and fear-monger about Republicans. That's the way to go. That's what I'm understanding by what she said. Misunderstanding her, correct me if I'm wrong. Try to be generous, but that's what I'm understanding. And if that's true, then it seems like a fair conclusion to draw is that Anna thinks that fear-mongering about Republicans is totally legitimate, if and only if you do that along with giving stuff to people, right? Where's the lie? And I feel like I got some criticisms against that. I think that that's stupid. I don't think you should fearmonger ever about anything. You can criticize people fairly, but don't fearmonger. Fearmongering to me connotes that what you're doing is exaggerating things in order to make it seem like, I guess, your political rivals, in this case, the no good, very bad, evil Republicans, are doing something really, really bad and really, really nefarious and really, really monumentally bad, when it's not really as bad as you're making it seem. That's what fearmongering seems to be. And you're using that as a manipulation tactic for political gain. So you're basically deceiving people for political gain by scaring the shit out of them, by making it seem as though your political enemies are way more evil than your political allies. And the fact that you're advocating that kind of thing tacitly is telling about the shortcomings of your side. But yet the whole message here is that progressive is the way to go. Progressive is like next to godly, I guess. I don't I guess, but like not really. Sometimes progressives are stupid and sometimes their policies don't work. And like your whole position would be more respectable if you were willing to admit that. Like, y'all don't have all the answers. Progressives ain't perfect, they ain't infallible. The fuck? Like, I guess I get, if you're a progressive, you would prefer progressive policies to that of conservative policies. And you might think that progressive policies are less likely to be an error than conservative ones. And perhaps there is a fair case to be made about that. I'm open-minded enough to that. But like, come on. Like this weird business of like, progressive is the way to go. See, I told you. Good things happen when you're progressive. It's like, not always. Not always. One of the reasons why Republicans are making so much gains is because you keep kowtowing to that woke shit, fam. And that is fucking y'all up. Your progressive side is seemingly stupid as fuck sometimes when you embrace that woke shit. These are facts. But let's move on. I want to hear what Anna has to say.
And so he mentions the marijuana classification in his third tweet, writing, "We classify marijuana at the same level as heroin," which is insane, "and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. I'm asking Javier Becerra and the Attorney General to initiate the process of reviewing how marijuana is scheduled under federal law." And by the way, I mean, this is an issue that has widespread agreement across the country, across the political aisle. 91% of Americans overall would like to see marijuana be legalized. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Take a look at this Pew Research Center pie graph that gives you a sense of just how widespread the support is for marijuana legalization. Fewer than 10% of US adults say marijuana should not be legal at all. And that consists of like Dennis Prager and maybe 3 other people.
Just had to get that Dennis Prager jab. They had a debate recently. I might cover that shit because low key, I had a bone to pick with both of them about that shit. But focusing on this though. So yeah, there is according to this Pew research poll, yeah, there's an overwhelming majority of people that think that marijuana should be legal in some sense. Now, what I don't like is that you can see it here, but that she failed to explicitly name it, which is only 60%, which is still a majority, by the way, and a sound majority. It's a super majority, I guess, if you were going to apply that to the House or the Senate. But 60% say that that marijuana should be used for medical and recreational use. 31% say that it should be used for medical use only. And then she's right about the less than 10% say it should not be legal at all. So 91 think that it should be legal in some sense. And so she's adding the 31 medical only with the recreational and medical. I just like, I like those particulars to be named so that there's no funny business going on. But now that I've added that, she's basically right with those extra details added in. And yeah, there's an overwhelming majority. Now, here's a pattern I'm noticing with a lot of progressives. Kyle Kalinske does this a lot, and I'm starting to notice that the Young Turks are doing it a lot, and probably David Pakman. Actually, I don't know if David Pakman does this. I don't watch his show enough. I haven't watched it enough recently to know that he does this. But this appeal to populism, right, which is potentially a fallacy. Like the fact that the majority of the country in a given poll, which may or may not be flawed, agree on something doesn't necessarily mean that that policy is a good policy. And I feel like progressives need to come to terms with that shit. there's all kinds of examples of overwhelmingly popular policy positions that turned out to be fucked up and stupid. So like let's pump the brakes on the popularity shit. But it's not nothing though, to be fair to them, like to show that according to a pretty sound poll, and I'm assuming it's not methodologically flawed, or there's no funny business going on with this Pew Research poll. Pew Research is pretty reputable. That according to this, in terms of the opinions of people, and it's not clear whether the people who were polled are actually like in the know or have like thought about this really hard at all, but like a more or less random sample, 91% think that medical marijuana should be legal. I think that's in some sense a good temperature check for what the kind of position generally is in the country. And so it's something in the ways of support for a position, but it's not definitive proof that a position is like is like a really good fucking policy position. So I just don't like the way that liberals more and more increasingly, it seems, are trying to argue that because something is popular, that means it's the right thing to do. Full stop. Like, fuck that. That's not true. There's all kinds of popular shit that turned out to be the fucking wrong thing to do. So stop it. Especially if it's based on misinformation. Like that's one of the biggest ones. I think there was overwhelming support and sentiment for going to war against whoever the fuck tore down or flew planes into the fucking World Trade Center at the time, and that was leveraged to justify us going to war in countries that didn't have shit to do with it, and also the lie about weapons of mass destruction. There was a lot of support about going to war. You looked like a fucking unpatriotic douchebag if you didn't want to go to war, but that clearly wasn't the right thing to do. Now, was it? Even though it was overwhelmingly popular, as Kyle Kalinske wants to say. And I can give you dozens of more examples of that kind of thing. The 1994 crime bill had bipartisan support. It was overwhelmingly popular as well at the time, even by members of the Black community. And yet it turned out to be really fucking bad for the Black community. Go fucking figure. And it was progressive too. Not really. Not by today's standards, to be honest. It wasn't progressive at all. But it was still overwhelmingly popular though. So just because I guess the progressive policies rule the day, according to Cenk Uygur and other people who pretend like only the progressive policies are popular, doesn't mean that they're the right thing to do. Sometimes the unpopular thing is the right thing to do, and those are the toughest things to implement because they're unpopular. Go fucking figure.
Cenk.
Yeah. So remember why the war on drugs was started in the first place? One of Nixon's top aides says, it has admitted, this is a direct quote, you want to know what this war on drugs was really about? And remember, it started in 1970, as Anna just told you, under Nixon. He explained, we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. The war on drugs has always been political. It has been against black folks and the left in general.
I do think the war on drugs has definitely been political. The idea that the war on drugs was some kind of like scapegoat to attack the Black community is a little bit more far-fetched and conspiratorial. I don't know how true that is. I do think that, especially in the 70s, the forms of Black conscientiousness and politicking that were going on at that time and were making waves at that time, there definitely was a political animus by people of certain political persuasions, and indeed people who are probably racist, likely racist against Black people, particularly from the South. There was a well-documented animus against that form of politicking, and it was definitely associated with hippies, for sure. And Nixon was a figure who was antithetical to both of those things and stood against both of those things. So there's some truth to it, but but this kind of conspiratorial, like, yeah, we're gonna devise a policy that's like a clever cover-up for us really just attacking hippies and Black people. I don't know about that. I think what they were probably attacking were policy positions that they disagree with, and I do think that Nixon was racist. To be fair, I think that's obviously true, but like the policy position, like the war on drugs, is like a scapegoat for like just I don't know, like disrupting the politicking that Black people were doing. I don't know, man. That seems like conspiracy. That seems like very conspiratorial stuff that needs more evidence. But maybe there is evidence, and I'm just ignorant of it. That's possible. I've heard about the COINTELPRO stuff, and they dropped off crack and of the drugs in black neighborhoods, to disrupt the kind of like cohesiveness of those communities and stuff like that. I've heard those things before. They're definitely plausible. So it's a plausible conspiracy theory, but it does seem conspiratorial though. I don't know how true that is. And I'm just expressing doubt. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't know about it. But let's assume for the sake of argument that that's true, as Jenk seems to think it is. Yeah, the war on drugs, whether it had this conspiratorial impetus or not, was still bad because it produced a whole bunch of negative outcomes in the black community, and that's undeniable. And so I think you can criticize it just based on that, the undeniable facts, as opposed to adding this layer of conspiracy theory on top of it. I don't think that's necessary to criticize it and to even label it as diabolical for the black community. And so ending the war on drugs, the impetus for ending that, insofar as it's detrimental to the black community and other communities, or I guess in some sense detrimental to liberals or hippies or some shit, I guess maybe, then yeah, I think you can just argue it on that basis. You don't have to rely on some conspiracy theory that whereby Nixon devised some clever plot to like take out black people or some shit. Like I mean, maybe he did. I don't know, and maybe a whole bunch of other people did. I don't know, but like, I don't know, man. That's that's a bit. I don't know. It's just the other thing that bugs me about like liberal types is they get away with like conspiracy theories like that. Like they don't even get called conspiracy theories. They don't get downplayed and dismissed like that. The Q people, their shit gets dismissed. This shit gets mainstreamed. And people just accept this shit. Like, no, like that's not conspiracy. That happened. This one's true. And yeah, Russia colluded to steal the 2016 election from Hillary Clinton. That one's true, right? like all the blue anon left wing conspiracy theories, those are mainstreamed in a way that the Q ones aren't. But there's some batshit crazy ones on the right too. I mean, yeah, the Q people say some weird shit. I don't fuck with none of that shit. The lizard people, the blood sucking, what are they drinking? Adrenazine or some shit, whatever the fuck that shit is called. That shit's weird. I don't know about all that. Now the deep state thing is probably the more plausible thing. That makes more sense to me. But there's versions of it that are just stupid. Just like there's versions of the whole white supremacy conspiracy thing that are just stupid. But there are versions of it that are formidable. And so what's interesting is the parallels between the kind of different wonky conspiracy theories. Some are way more wonky than others, but like you get towards the more sensible and how they kind of mirror each other in terms of like distrust of those in power from the right and the left, but from like two different vantage points. And they can't see how alike they are to each other. In fact, they emphatically deny that they are like each other. They hate each other that much. That shit is fascinating to me. That's fucking fascinating.
And so this is 50 years too late, right? But I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. Why didn't Obama do this? Why didn't Clinton do this? By the way, they both smoked pot and laughed about it. So did Kamala Harris. But they put away.
Hey, I agree with Jake on that. I call them motherfuckers out. Yeah, they presided over some of the most harsh policies as regards marijuana at the federal level and at the state and local levels, to whatever extent that they were in office at more local state levels. Like Obama was a senator of Illinois, and Kamala Harris was the fucking, I think, AG of California, and she incarcerated a hella people out here, fam, over weed. And they had the nerve to go on the fucking Breakfast Club and just kind of smile and laugh like, yeah, I smoke weed, ha ha ha, I'm cool. Like yeah, call them motherfuckers out. Yeah, I agree with you. That's one thing I agree with Jake on right now.
Millions of people, not just those two, but all of these folks combined in a war against their own. And they were cowards through and through and constantly caved in to Republicans. And look,
the caved into Republicans thing, I just, that's such a weird framing. Like, these motherfuckers made their own decisions. Democrats did work with Republicans on bipartisan legislation, but to say they caved in is weird. Like Republicans, and that, I mean, if that's the case, then Republicans caved in to them just as much because they had to come to the table too. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you acting like Democrats didn't agree with this shit? Like, what? Like, why is that a Republican thing? Why is that not just a consensus amongst Democrats and Republicans?
Look at it. They barely move when it's 91%. How much clearer does it have to be? And the Democrats are like, oh, all right. We waited 2 years. It's right before the election. Maybe we'll pick up a couple of votes. 91%. You sure? I don't know.
This is that dramatic shit that he does that I fucking hate. I hate this shit so much. Like he's basically mocking, and I kind of do something like that, but not as exaggerated as that. But I kind of mock people and shit too, and I make facial expressions and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not holier than thou, but like he. You want to know what's really funny? I'm about to make a comparison I don't think he'd like. So like when he does shit like this, it reminds me, I remember when Trump got accused of like mocking a disabled person. He was like, oh, I don't know what I mean, or whatever the fuck gesture he did. Like Trump was like in these moments where he was basically making fun of somebody. He was mocking somebody he disagreed with or whatever. Media blew that shit out of proportion. This motherfucker does this shit all the time. Nobody says shit. Now, he's not the president of the United States, to be fair. But this motherfucker, like, I just think that shit is so fucking annoying. When he does it, particularly. In general, I don't really care, but like he does it all the time. And it's like, bro, like it doesn't really help your points. It's not making your point stronger. A lot of times I feel like he's trying to compensate for the weaknesses of his argument by like mocking people. And like, here's the thing, like people who are on shows like that, and this is why I like having guests that disagree with me regularly, is because they don't get no pushback. Like motherfuckers just say whatever the fuck they want, and nobody's fact checking them in real time, bro, and challenging that smug shit. I really wish that these motherfuckers would get challenged. They had Dennis Prager on, but then they like steamrolled them a little bit because Prager was basically the away team. But like, I don't know, like a fair debate where it's like evenly matched, them motherfuckers seem to be avoiding that shit. Like, I don't think that they would win in a fair debate. It'd be interesting. I saw he did debate Ben Shapiro, but I think he got his ass handed to him though. But he covered it on his show. He made it sound like he won, but he would.
Ricardo's gonna yell at me.
No,
okay,
Jake,
and then
what Biden did is very, very bold. Okay, very, very bold. In fact, it's so bold that the youngsters are now calling him Dank Brandon. And the memes have begun. We got to look at them. Here's an example tweeted out by Don Moynihan. And I think it's a lot of fun. The idea of Joe Biden ending his day, like wrapping things up, taking a load off by smoking a blunt is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, there's almost no chance of that.
The dude that wrote the 1994 crime bill, smoking pot, that's rich. That's fucking rich. That would be ironic.
0%.
Well, maybe that's why the memory loss is happening. It turns out he loves it. He can't get off of it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, no, seriously, one last thing here. Look, it's many decades too late. Even more should be done. It should be legal everywhere. I can't believe they waited until 91%. All that notwithstanding, okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. Great job. All right, look at Biden delivering on student debt relief and on marijuana. It gives people a reason to vote. And so well played. Thank you. Super late, but we will definitely take it. Thanks for watching the.
All right, so that's the end of that. Again, I'm not really a big fan of the Young Turks, but I force myself to watch their videos every now and again. I even less often as David Pakman. That motherfucker is so fucking biased, but I watch his shit just to see what progressives think and how they argue about shit. I like Jimmy Dore. I don't always agree with Jimmy Dore, but I like him. I like to listen to him. I listen to Tim Pool. He's self-proclaimed moderate centrist, but he does seem to lean right on some things. Probably more so than he leans left on some things. I've heard Vosh, Destiny. These are more leftist types. On the right, I'll listen to Candace Owens. I kind of force my listen to her because she be tripping. Her she just be doing too much. I don't really fuck with her like that. Black conservative perspective. That dude, I've seen a lot of his videos. I don't always agree with him, but some of the stuff I agree with. Daily Wire, I've seen their videos, so I try to get right, left. I want to see more centrist stuff, so I like The Hill. Breaking Points, I kind of like what they got going. I started. That's how I actually got into The Hill, was Sager and Crystal. And then now they're doing the Breaking Points thing. So I watch their videos. And then The Hill, I watch theirs. So that's more kind of interest. Reuters, I read their stuff, but I also watch the little like videos that they do. Yeah, so I try to stay well rounded, try to get informed by various different sources, because I don't think any one source is perfect. We all have our biases. Even me, I have my bias. Even as a moderate in the centrist, I have my bias. So it is what it is. But coming up on the hour mark, so yeah, that was another segment, and I got another one coming up soon. So until the next one, peace.